You know that bit in Disney's Robin Hood, the one with the hot foxes, where all the villagers are in prison and the rooster is singing, "Every town has its ups and downs. Sometimes the ups outnumber the downs," but not in Nottingham. And then Robin Hood appears and breaks everyone out and it's great. Well, Gallows Corner by 3 Sail Studios is that, but Sir Robin of Locksley is not coming. It's up to you, the peasants, to revolt on your own, to rage against the medieval machine, and maybe, just maybe, take down the systems of oppression and build something better. My name's Rich, this is Renegade Rolls, and welcome to my review of Gallows Corner. Gallows Corner is a largely historical, medieval tabletop role-playing game. As I'm recording, it's live on Kickstarter just now, and has already met its pledge goal. There's a link below to the Kickstarter page, and if you're watching in the future, I've replaced that with a link to where you can find it now. Gallows Corner is the second project by 3 Sail Studios. Their first one, Mapamundi, shipped and got out into the world beautifully, and it's so nice. But today is all about Gallows Corner. This video will cover the premise of the game, the core mechanics, we'll take a look at the setting and the expectations this drives for players and the game master, and we'll take a look at the game's philosophy as well as the not subtle in the slightest political overtones. Gallows Corner is a game of alternate history, rooted in the places and spaces of an England that once was and could have been. A game that probes the rot at the heart of this sceptred isle and celebrates the radical histories and traditions of its people. Here's a super quick rules summary. In Gallows Corner, you're not heroes, you're just regular folks. You have 3 main stats: your physical, your emotional, and intellectual. Each character also has a trade and a job. When they're relevant, they can add numbers to their rolls. It uses a dice pool system where to succeed, you need to roll 5 or more on any one die. For your traits, when you start out, you roll a d6, but as you continue, you can roll higher value dice. Combat is a last resort in this game. Kind of like Mothership, if you're fighting, you're probably already losing. But it's resolved with a contested roll for the physical stat of the player character versus the NPC controlled by the narrator. As the game progresses, the mechanics of influence and control come into play. Influence is the fame and notoriety of the party, while control is the power exerted by the state. Using your influence to overcome that state control without putting a price on your head is the big challenge of the game. There is a good chance that you've played Dungeons & Dragons or other role-playing games, which on the surface have a medieval fantasy setting. We don't have time today to go into my long and detailed rant about how the default setting in Dungeons & Dragons is actually Renaissance Europe rather than medieval, because of the social mobility, the growing middle class. 1 hour later. The fact almost everyone can read and write, the expectation of personal lines and properties. Yeah, hi. So medieval fantasy is different. From what I've seen so far in the Gallows Corner pre-release guide, the game is not this imagined generic ye olde England. It is very specific, and it's clear that so much thought and attention has gone into the detail of creating a real sense of place that lives large in the mind, regardless of where in the world you're from. The mix of very well-researched historical detail, and then the assumptions about who the people might have been, what they might have been like, comes together to make a setting which will be so much fun to run a campaign in. I caught up with George, the lead creator, and asked him about the genesis of the game. What was the reason for such a switch of tone between Mapamundi and Gallows Corner?
Gallows Corner is definitely powered by hope, and in fact, hope is probably more important in Gallows Corner than it was in Mapamundi in this moment in the real world. Much like now, we exist under oppressive rich people and oppressive extraction, and those people are not afraid to use violence against you to keep to maintain the status quo. So you have to really dig deep, really dig into that hope to kind of keep going, or even to get up and start making that change in the first place.
That section is part of a longer interview I did with George, where we talk about the game, the TTRPG industry as a whole, and of course, quite a lot of politics. You can find it on the Renegade Rolls Patreon. For just £3 a month, you get access to a whole load of interviews with cool people, additional content, behind the scenes looks, uncut versions of my actual play games, and more of those coming soon, and it's the best way of supporting me as a creator. So if you have the funds, I'd really appreciate you signing up. Gallows Corner is a game with politics, past and present, at its core. Playing with the politics removed would be a very different experience, and I reckon not nearly so satisfying and cathartic. Often we play role-playing games to get away from the real world, to whack some skeletons, to make friends with Boblin the Goblin, but a dose of historical and social realism might be just what your group's looking for. Gallows Corner is so different in tone to anything that I've run as Game Master or played in before. It's the land of Robin Hood, but he's not part of this story. It's about the common folks coming together and standing up to systems of oppression. But as I found when lead creator George ran a practice session for me, speak up too loudly, antagonise your betters, and you will be kicked back down into the dirt. 3 Sail Studios' previous game was Mapamundi. I made a review when that came out, and you can find a link in the description. That was a game of optimism, in the hope that people could come together, set aside their differences, and build a brave new world, based on grander ideals than just personal gain. By contrast, Gallows Corner is a stark look at the world as it was, and currently is, without rose-tinted glasses. So what does winning this game even look like? That very much depends on the game master, and whether they're willing to indulge in some alternate history, where against the odds a player characters could lead social change, where in 1376 new, better ways of living are established, where power is truly held to account and leaders work for the good of all, not just their own cartel, if you can imagine such a thing. Or winning might just be pushing back the darkness for another day, having a hand in deposing a cruel despot, and accepting their slightly better replacement, without managing to effect structural change, so the machine keeps on turning. Either way, choosing to stand up for the downtrodden and being a light in the dark, regardless of the final outcome, is an incredible experience to roleplay. And for me, genuinely inspiring to be a voice for the voiceless today.